Hello, this is Father Louie Scurti with Friends of the Word. We have been having wonderful experiences sharing memories of ministry, Vatican II, post and pre-Vatican II with Msgr Jack Carroll here at Our Lady of the Magnificat Church in Kinnelon. And I thought this segment we get a little personal and then go back into the past as well again. And for the personal, I remember working with you in Chatham, and summer came and you were ready for your boat. Talk about the boat. Talk about the boating experience.
Well, I got into sailing when I was superintendent of schools. Bailey Elliott High School had an auction, and there was a sunfish there, used of course, and it was being auctioned off for $250 or something like that. And I made a bid, nobody else bid on it, so guess what? I had a beat-up old sunfish. The family that donated it said to me, do you know how to sail? I said, I haven't got a clue. So they said to me, we'll bring it down to Maniloking. You come on down, we'll throw it in the water and teach you how to sail.
Wow.
And that's exactly what happened. And my first lesson, now we each put on a little life preserver, and out in the water we went, and my first lesson was how to right the boat, because before I knew it, we were both in the water. And it was a great lesson, and because if you don't know how to right the boat, you're not going to get anywhere. You're stuck. You're sinking. You're sinking. So he showed me exactly how to do it, and we practiced it a couple of times. I think I got the idea. Excellent. And so that was my very first sailing lesson, and I was still a pretty young priest at that time. And I moved from that little 10 or 12-foot sunfish up to a 28-foot boat over many years, and sailing it. And I've had Bishop Berdimer out on a couple of occasions, and some other priests in the diocese out. It's always fun to sail with somebody else. Sure. And
do you put them to work?
Absolutely.
Ooh,
if you sail, you're going to work.
That's
because
funny.
Sailing is, people see pictures.
Oh,
and
sure.
They think you just sit back and let the wind do the work. You have to know how to work the wind. And then it's a thrilling experience, and people who are either taking the sheets or whatever, holding the tiller or the wheel, they get a thrill out of it, because they're actually moving that boat.
That's great.
And so I've enjoyed it, and I've sailed all over on my boat and others. The problem always was, being a priest, you always had to get back.
Right.
You had a wedding or a wedding rehearsal or something like that, and many a day I'd left the boat where it was, and I just got a ride back or got on a train or something to come back, because you had to be back. So then I'd worry about getting the boat and bringing it back. But I've done most of my sailing down on Raritan Bay in New Jersey.
Right, okay. So you think it's important for priests to be able to, quote, get away, to have a hobby or an interest or a sport or art?
Absolutely. You really need that. You need to have something other than your ministry to, I mean, I've found, being a member of the Keyport Yacht Club, an opportunity to do plenty of ministry there.
Right, sure.
As much as I wanted to do, because it's wherever you are, but not when you're out on the water. That's for fun and an exercise and enjoyment, and but every other place, and
you must have a great amount of metaphors regarding the sailing and Jesus.
Oh my gosh, yes.
From the Gospels.
Yes,
wonderful.
Yes.
So, okay, so priests should have a little extracurricular activity for their soul, their body, and their minds. What would you tell young guys who are in the seminary or preparing to be priests? Right.
Well, I would say to them that in addition to their studies, and it's pretty rigorous, as you remember, and you really have to have some fun time. And
I had a lot of that time.
I had more than my share, I'm sure. and they're not as confined as we were as seminarians.
Right.
So they have opportunities to do some other things. For example, our Colombian guys play quite a bit of soccer.
Oh, right.
And some of them play up here in the winter in our gym, and in the summer outside on the ball field.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that they get involved in that. And I'm not sure what our Polish guys do for recreation, but I know that they also have some soccer, and they may do some of that as well. But in the seminary, I do think they play a bit of soccer and probably basketball and things like that.
As far as ministry, what would you tell the young guys, men who are preparing for ministry?
Yeah, I would tell them that they have to be friendly with people. They have to reach out to people, even if English is not their first language. You can speak to people with more than just your language. You can speak to them the language of the eyes, the smile, the handshake, the embrace. Being friendly and outgoing toward people is a very, very important quality for a seminarian to have. And I think that ought to be discovered in the seminary, or if not, it ought to be developed in the seminary. And certainly sending seminarians into parishes is a good way for them to understand.
Typically, for our audience's sake, when a seminarian comes to a parish, what year in seminary is he, and what academic year is that?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I've had them as young as pre-theology.
Which is undergrad.
Which is undergrad,
Right.
which means they could be anywhere from 18 to, 20 maybe, or somewhere in there.
Right.
And that's pretty young. Most of them are in theology that come. I personally think that we shouldn't take men to be who are from other countries who are not ready for theology or prepared for theology. That's an additional burden when you have to give them pre-theology. Although there is the advantage of the language, that they have more time to learn the English language, and that's a struggle for a lot of young guys.
I couldn't imagine going to, also you mentioned Polish kids, going to Poland and learning the language, and then creating a job, ministry, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, and I often say, some of them, they speak very broken English, but they speak better English than I speak Polish.
Well, that's true. That's true. And you have that cultural difference as well.
That's a major problem.
That's a big problem. Right. But I would like, in the seminary, I would like them to have a little more understanding of what parish life is all about. And that would mean that a parish priest who's spent a good deal of time in parish work ought to be brought into the seminary to talk to the men and listen to their thoughts about ministry, and many of their thoughts are not right on target, and listen to them and then try to show them a different way of thinking and acting, and that people want to be inspired. They really don't want to be told. And so the tone of voice that a seminarian uses with people is very, very important.
Absolutely.
And if you don't know that or don't develop that, and it can be developed, I think.
Yes.
Then you're at a disadvantage.
That puts the clergy away from the people, right?
It certainly
I remember when I was in St. Mary's Seminary in Baltimore, from which I got ordained, the last year we had people from various occupations come, not only speak to the deacons, who were deacons at that point, but have like seminars, so they would go over several weeks. We had a doctor, we had a nurse, to deal with hospital ministry. We had a mortician, or I guess funeral director, talk about the sensitivity around funeral and funeral ministry. My favorite was the director of the Center Stage Theater, and that director taught us homiletics. He was terrific. He was wonderful, and he's influenced me. I know he influenced me a great deal, because again, he's telling people how to act. Now we weren't acting, but eye contact, delivery, talking, volume, pitch, and no reliance on notes. You know, get it in there. And if some thought hits you, be spontaneous with it. But really, so those kinds of professionals really helped us. I don't know if they're doing that in the seminary anymore.
I don't know. I really do not know. But I think it would be of great benefit if people in those professions you mentioned, and especially in theater. I mean, look around us here. So much of what we do is, if we're doing liturgy, there's theater. There's some theater there that needs to be understood. And certainly when you're visiting a person who is dying, there is a certain sensitivity that the priest should have. You can't just go in and zap them with the oil and walk out. That may be something they don't even desire, but what they would love to do is just talk to a priest.
Contact, right.
Just contact. Right. And so I've tried with the seminarians I've had over the years to bring them along with me to a hospital or to a bedside somewhere, or to some other parish activity, so that they could observe what I do, and then we could talk about it and criticize it and decide, it's a learning thing.
Yes.
And I'm sure maybe they see some films or whatever in the seminary regarding that, but it's nothing like having a human being there.
Right. Do you feel that the guys coming out who have been assigned here are ill-prepared or not sufficiently prepared?
I think they're well prepared as far as their theology is concerned. But in terms of the day-to-day working of the parish, they learn that on the job.
Yes.
And but I think they could be forewarned and a little better prepared than some of them are.
Well, in the secular world, we have internships, unpaid internships very often, when young men and women go into a field and they're working, they're taking orders, maybe taking coffee orders or making some sort of a computer orders, but they're doing things that their colleagues are doing, and they're observing, and they're the people who really benefit a great deal, and then they're the people who get hired.
What you're talking about in reference to a seminarian is a pastoral year.
Right.
And I like that idea of a pastoral year. I mean, when you and I were first ordained, what did we know about parish life?
Exactly.
Very, very little. And but had we had a pastoral year, or even less than a year, but some pastoral experience, I mean, when we went home, we went to work.
Right.
We had to earn money.
That's true.
And that was a good thing in one way, but we didn't really understand what a parish was all about. So,
what is one thing, with all your years, 50 years of priest, that we could close these thoughts with? I mean, we can go on forever because both of us are yentas. I mean, we can talk forever.
That's the truth.
But what's one thing you would like to leave with our audience? That's, I don't want to say summarizes your ministry, but is most significant for you as a priest.
I think for me as a priest, and this may be true of all of us as Christians, but for me as a priest, what's been very important is doing God's will. And I think I've spent 50 years trying to do that, not always accomplishing it, because I don't always take the time to listen to God and follow His direction. When I do, it's pretty good. And So I would just say to my brother priests and seminarians and anyone else who may be listening, yeah, remember those words from the Our Father, thy will be done.
Amen. Thank you, Jack. I appreciate it.
Welcome,
Many years of friendship and many
Thanks,
years
Lou.
of experience being shared today.
Thank you.
God bless you. Ad multos annos.
God bless you.
This has been Father Louie Scurti, and we're going to take a moment, and we're going to pause, and we're going to take an overview of the church. I'm going to ask Msgr Carroll just to highlight certain aspects of this it's a beautiful church, but it's a practical church, and I don't want to sound harsh, but it's a worship space that Msgr Carroll assisted a great deal in designing. So that'll be our last segment. This has been Father Louie Scurti with Msgr Jack Carroll here at Our Lady of the Magnificat Church in Kinnelon, New Jersey. Come on by. There's room for everybody. And let me hear from you, Father Louie Scurti at hotmail.com. God bless you.